Told me that I was going to be speaking, and God gave me the word, and I was studying, and it seemed like every time I studied, somebody step on it a little bit, and I'm like, man, that must be confirmation that this is something that God has given me. You know, every time we have Sunday school, Bishop Nunn to come in here, step on it a little bit, you know, and then I got excited one Sunday school, and I almost preached it. I was like, man, God, you giving me confirmation. And then my mother-in-law, Sister Walker, stood up this morning, and she gave a testimony, and her testimony was in it a little bit. So I was like, man, there's confirmation right there that this is what I'm supposed to be. So I'm going to try to give it to y'all the way God gave it to me. You know? The message is coming from Matthew 14. And I'm going to start at the 20th verse, and it's going to read I'm going to read to the 31st. You know, so don't worry about standing up. You know, I'm going to just give it to y'all because it's some things that I want to hit in this message that God gave to me that I want to speak about. You know, it starts at the 20th verse, and then it said, they did all eat and were filled, and they took up the fragments that remained, 12 baskets full. And they that had eaten were about 5,000 men, besides the women and children. And straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into the ship and go before him unto the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into the mountain apart to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went unto them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, and saying, it is a spirit. And they cried out for fear. But straightway Jesus spoke unto them, saying, be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me to come unto thee on the water. And he said, come. And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterously, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him, and said unto him, O thou of little faith, why did thou doubt? And you know, when I was reading over that, God gave it to me as, do you truly trust God? And you know, a while back, me and Minister Kosum, I was taking him back to the nursing home. And when we got up there, I parked, and you know, usually we have church in the truck, just me and him. And he said, brother, can I ask you a question? And I said, yeah. He said, well, I don't want to be out of bounds, but you know, God put something on my heart. And, you know, it wouldn't be right for me not to share it with you. And I said, well, what is it? And he said, well, do you truly trust him? And I looked at him and I said, yeah, I truly trust him. And he said, I ain't trying to be in your business, but why don't you pay your tithes? And I looked at him, I looked away, and I looked back at him, and I told him, I said, get out my truck. Get out. And you know, he couldn't get out unless I went around there and gave him a chair. And I thought about it, you know, and ever since he said that to me, it's been on my heart. You know, do I truly trust him? And you know, that was when he said that, it began to minister to me, and I was like, but do I truly trust him? And you know, that was the topic he gave me. Do we truly trust him? You know, it was three things I want y'all to think about. And one of them was, what is your trust in God? How do you trust him? The other one was, do you trust him when there's an obstacle? When there's something obstructing that free reign we got, do you trust him? And then the other one that I want you to think about, do you trust him in your situations? Your good situation versus your bad situation. You know, and I started at verse 20 because I wanted y'all to think about something else that had happened prior to them getting on that ship. At that point, they had just got done feeding the 5,000. And remember I said, well, when I read the text, I said the 5,000 men besides the women and children.
Right.
So we don't, it ain't mentioned in there what was the full multitude where they got fed. But remember, he fed them with 5 and 2. 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. But he fed 5,000 people. You know, when he sent his disciples on, Jesus went and prayed. You know, sometimes we just, I heard Sister Walker say, you got to fast and pray. Sometimes you just got to pray about it. You know, whatever the situation is, you got to pray about it. You know, and when they went out and Jesus sent them ahead on the boat, when they're on the ship and they're out there and the water is kind of waving and it's tossing a little bit, and Jesus walked out there to them. And when Peter looked out and the disciples saw him, and they was like, man, that must be a spirit. And Jesus, you know, he gave them confirmation, it's not a spirit, it's me. I'm coming to you. And Peter, you know, because sometimes, you know, we can hear it and we can see it, but we need a little bit more to truly trust what it is that's going on. You know, so Peter cried out to him, and Peter said, if it's thou, Lord, let me come to you, call me to you. So, you know, Jesus told him, it's me. So now he can trust him. Okay, it's him, so I can go to him. So when Peter stepped out the boat, he stepped out the boat on trust. So sometimes when it ain't nothing going on, we can trust Jesus. We can trust him. When the water is calm and we see that shiny glass surface, we can trust him. We can step out on faith then. You know, because it was 2 things as I was studying this thing that stood out. You know, and they kind of go together. When you got trust, you got faith. When you got faith, you got trust. You know, if I was to ask Brother Ken if he would stand up and turn around and I get behind him and I said, fall back, he trusting that I'm going to catch him. But if I don't step down there behind him, it ain't nothing saying, okay, well, he ain't behind me, so I don't think I'm going to fall back. And see, that's what we do sometimes when we out there and we doing stuff the way we want to do it. You know, and if we can look back and see Jesus and see God behind us, you know, we bold on whatever we do. But when we look back and we don't see him back there, oh man, I don't think I'm going to do that. You know, because it brings me to mind, I think about when he asked me, why don't you pay your tithes? And it's always something. You know, every time I get out, we put the money aside and say, we're going to pay the tithes. And just as fast as we said, we're going to pay our tithes, here come a bill. If I truly trust him, I'll pay the tithes and let the bill wait. You know, but a lot of the times, I take the tithe money and pay the bill. Because, like I said, do I truly trust him? You know, when Peter stepped out the boat on trust. When he began to walk on that water, he began to walk on the water because God got my back. I can trust him. But as usual, it's always an obstacle. You know, that wind began to blow and them waves began to splash a little bit. So it was an obstacle. So when that obstacle showed itself, Peter began to doubt. The trust left. The faith left. So then he began to sink. When he began to sink, he began to panic and called out to God again. Now he in his circumstance. He in his situation. Now he crying for God. But if he would have stayed with the trust and the faith, he would have never ended up in that situation in the first place. And that's what a lot of us do. We stop trusting God and we lose the faith. And once we lose the faith, we get caught up in our circumstances. You know, it led me back a while back. Sister Walker spoke a word, and the word that she spoke was that faith. And then a little while ago, I recorded her, and she spoke on that storm. You know, sometimes that storm will come to test that faith. And when that comes, do you truly trust him? You know, Brother Archie spoke a while back, and he said, be pig. And being the pig is a sacrifice that got to be made. You know, he was telling the story about all the farm animals coming to breakfast, and each one of them could produce something that they could give other than themselves. But when it came to the pig, all the pig had to sacrifice was itself. So when they asked, what you got, pig? The pig said, I'm sacrificing myself. So when God asks you to be the pig, can you truly trust him? When he asks you to step out and do what it is that he got for you to do, can you truly trust him? You know, Brother June spoke a while back, and he said that God wanted to return on his investment. You know, and his message, what he was talking about, when Jesus got on the cross, he sacrificed himself. In his sacrifice, there was a return to be made. The return on his investment was us. Now it's time for us to do the work. He sacrificed himself, so now it's time for the job to be done. So a return on the investment, do you truly trust him when he say, I need a return on my investment? You know, so much stuff go on today in the world that we get caught up in, and when we find ourselves out there, we seem to forget who brought us through in the first place. You know, I think back, you know, I heard a pastor, they talked about the message that the pastor brought, shake well before using. And that thing, it stuck with me for a while. Because sometimes God will shake us well before he uses. But in him shaking us, do we truly trust that after he get done shaking and it's time to be used, do we trust him that he gonna use us? Or in the shaking, we lose our way. But a lot of the times we get caught up in the shaking, and when he goes to screw the cap off the users, we take off and go in the opposite direction. You know, I think about, just like I said, when Peter got to that boat, and when he got there, Peter stepped off in that water. And when he stepped off in that water, he was truly trusting that I see God, I see Jesus out there, and I can go to him. And as he began to walk on that water, and that wind blew, the first I could just imagine, he looked back, oh, let me get back on the boat. Because he got out of his comfort zone. And a lot of the times, that's what happened to us. We say we're strong enough. You know, Minister Cumberson always say, a pair of lips will say anything. That's right. And sometimes our pair of lips will say, man, I trust God fully. Until you get in that circumstance. And an obstacle will come. And when that obstacle comes, you quickly run for your comfort zone again. Yeah, I can go out here and I can do this. Oh, you want me to do that, Donna? Oh, I think I'm going to go and sit down. It ain't my turn yet. You know, we say we can do it, but do we truly trust him? Do we trust him enough to surrender everything that we got to him? Do we trust him enough that when the devil come up against us, instead of us submitting ourselves to the devil, we give ourselves to God? Do we trust him enough when the relationship that we in ain't going right? We trust God to put his hands in it. Do we trust him enough? You know, I hear Minister Kent, when he said he went for his house and he had to make them phone calls, he was trusting him enough that every time somebody said hold and click him over, he stayed on that phone and he waited. If they gave him a number, he called that number to go to the next person. He was trusting him enough. I remember when Sister Walker, when she went for her car, she had her eye on this one, but God blessed her with that one. But she trusted him enough to step out there and go get the car in the first place. And the whole thing is, you say you trust him, but do your behavior show that you truly trust him? How far are you willing to go with you saying that you trust God? How much are you willing to step out there completely and get out your comfort zone so that you can be used? You know, I just stopped by here to tell y'all this morning, you know, as I began to walk this walk, and when the brother asked me what he asked me, I had to examine myself, and that's one of the things I want y'all to think about this morning. Don't say it. Examine yourself and see if you're truly doing it. It ain't about the saying. You can say anything, but are you doing it? You know, when you say you trust him, is your behavior dictating the trust that you say you have for him? You know, after I talked with the brother and we got the money together and we started paying our tithes, and I noticed once I put forth that them tithes gonna come before them bills, God started turning all the bills around. Everything that we was worried about, okay, and I ain't even gonna say that word worrying, but the bills that was coming in, and we were like, okay, that need to get paid, that need to get paid. Tithes at the top now, and then the bills on the bottom. Because if I get them tithes first, because I say I trust him, so with me trusting him, I'm going to do what's going with his kingdom first, so I'm going to pay my tithes. Once I do that, God will take care of the rest. And I'm here today as a witness that that's exactly what happened. Once we begin to pay the tithes, our finances begin to grow. It was stuff that was coming up that before that we didn't have the money. Like my mom with her medical expenses and she not working. We were able to send my mom money to help her in her situation. And that wasn't because nothing Chris did or nothing my wife did. That was because we trusted she set the goal. I went along with the goal, trusting that once we stepped out, God was going to do the rest. And that's exactly what happened. Now when you get that phone call, it ain't no more. Oh man, what I'm going to do? I'm going to pay my tithes and let God pay the bill. I'll pay the tithes, can't pay the bill. You know, and like I said, this thing began to come through, and I was like, man, everybody on my message. Every time I come on Sundays or go somewhere, everybody was just touching it a little bit. But you know, I only stopped by to tell y'all this morning, like I said, just examine yourself. Think about it. Are you talking about it? Or like they say in the word, are you being about it? You know, if you saying you trust him, show him.
Amen.